What's up, everybody? This is your boy Big Nasty. I don't actually normally get to say that in these types of videos. I was coming up for an idea for my next possible video and something distracted me that caught my eye. GameTime released a brand new game recently, and it is the most low budget PlayStation 2 era boring, buggy, and abhorrent licensed mess of a game that you have ever seen. King Kong Return of the JPEG. I mean, just look at this mess. I'm not making a video on King Kong. If that wasn't bad enough, GameTime released an equally as bad game just a couple of weeks earlier, like a 1-2 punch of stinky poo-poo for your consoles, like you're feeding your toilet a snack. Someone should really take a look at all the bad games GameTime has made in their history. This game might have been even worse than King Kong though, because it was based on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Say it with me and give it back to me. ATLA is one of the best franchises around and has left a major mark on everyone's childhood. Great story, greater characters, and just a 10 out of 10 show all around. There's not much I can say about ATLA that hasn't been repeated about 1,000 times. But with a franchise as beloved and respected as this one, it's a shocker that more companies aren't throwing their hat into the ring and trying to create the next big game starring the gang. That's gang spelled with 2 A's, by the way. I mean, the ATLA universe itself easily lends itself to anything you could think of in video game form. Imagine an ATLA RPG or an MMO where you could create your own bender, or even better, your own avatar. Hell, imagine an Avatar MOBA with different classes pertaining to the different bending elements. I may have to make a video on that after today. But you know me, you know where this is leading. You could call me the most predictable man alive, you could call me Twinkle Toes, just make sure you call me Daddy, because what if somebody finally decided to make an ATLA video game? Arc System has actually talked about their interest in using the Avatar characters for their game, as they wanted them for their big crossover game BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. While we really could have had Ragna going against Zuko, or watching Chie and Yukiko falling in love with Sokka, or watching Neo and Combustion Man having a nice conversation. Anyways, we're speaking strictly The Last Airbender and not Korra, because it makes more sense to create a nice roster using one series before mixing both and causing some fan favorites on both sides to be left out. Plus, I never really caught up on Korra, so for this video today, we're going to be looking at what ATLA characters I would like to see in a fighting game. But just how many characters are going to be in that game? Well, we brought up GameTime so many times, and they happen to publish Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1 and 2, which respectively feature 22 and 26 characters. Take the average and we got a clean 24 characters, which is a lot quicker than how I usually go about it. I would include Cross Tag Battle to help decide the size, but that's a crossover game and those games usually have bigger rosters, so it didn't seem fair for these hypothetical developers who are probably Arc System's game. Yeah, maybe I should have done it. Rambling aside, we could finally move on to the gameplay. Yeah, first we gotta talk about how the game's gonna play, of course. I thought long and hard about this. Come on, we're both adults here. If you said pause, I'm ashamed of you. And after long thinking, I thought, why not give each player 5 bars of meter, because I like my fighting games to be fun. And we'll borrow a mechanic from fighters, which would be the spark. We'll be mostly speaking about this game in a 1v1 format, but I would also encourage a 2v2 mode in this game as well, since Avatar usually consists of some type of team battles. But with the spark, or bending burst, or whatever you like to call it, it acts as a big power up for the character you play, but not in the traditional way like a stat boost. Of course, I'd have every bender have some bending in their normals and specials, but the world of Avatar has tons of universal power-ups like Sozin's Comets for firebenders, and the full moon for waterbenders, and the like, so I make it when you spark, your character activates that power, whether it be something like the Twilight listed, or something more exclusive to them. When you burst, maybe your normals become stronger, or get more range, or in some cases you get more access to brand new moves that can help give your character the boost that they needed, and help make things a bit more thematic in the game. This would work for non-benders as well. I do have some in this roster. You just have to get a little bit more creative for them. Burst would be more frequent than Sparks, as with Sparks you get it once per game, but I'd say each fighter 2 bursts total or even 1 per round. Another thing I'd like to add is stage interactables. This is Avatar, and you cannot have an Avatar fighting game with no interactables because that's the bulk of the fighting they do in Avatar using their environment. I'd have every stage contain a few different stage interactables on them that are exclusive to all the bending and non-bending types. For example, we can even have a couple stages with the Cabbage Man and you interact with his cart or knock your opponent into it during the fight, causing an animation to play where he says his iconic line.
Oh, my cabbages!
There's a lot more you can do with stage interactions in the world of Avatar, but that's for sure one that you need to add. Well, 5 bars of super, a burst mode, and stage interactions. I feel like that's a good gist to help with the culture of this hypothetical game. And now that I'm done talking about the gameplay, we can finally move on to the roster with our first choices.
Secret tunnel through the mountain. Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. Tunnel. Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. Tunnel. Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. It's a secret tunnel. Yeah.
3 on 3.
Actually, Toph, there's 4 of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't count you. You know, no bending and all.
I can still fight!
Okay, 3 on 3 plus Sokka.
I mean, it's obvious that these 4 are going to be in the game, so it's not even a surprise. And with the way this video is going, we might be here for hours if I wasted any more time. So let's just have some fun and go over their movesets, starting with Katara. In most of the fights during the show, Katara has always done her best work when her opponents were kept at a distance. So let's make Katara a mid to long range fighter with waterbending normals that kind of reach out like Dhalsim in Street Fighter. We can also give her a projectile where she shoots ice disc and some ice and water specials. Her burst could give her the power of the full moon, and rather than reaching half screen, all her normals and pokes would have extended range, almost reaching full screen. Of course, Katara would suffer up close in and out of burst mode, meaning she would want all of her enemies far away from her. She can also have a super where she freezes the opponent and handcuffs them, allowing for follow-ups after the super, or even a level 5 super where she bloodbends the opponent. Toph would, of course, excel on the ground, a bunch of earthbending normals and specials, and perhaps a far-reaching grab like Garrus and MK11. But instead of sucking you up with sand, the earth beneath you just disappears. Of course, Toph does great on the ground, but she's blind, so once you leave the ground, she has a hard time. I'd give every character a universal anti-air that could lead to combos, but Toph would have a very short reach. Her anti-air would be something like her putting up a rock wall that has a very slim hitbox that mainly protects her directly above her head. If it does hit, it would simply knock the opponent back a distance. I'd make Toph the grappler who's slow and doesn't have very long combos, but hard-hitting normals and a couple of earth-bending base grabs to play around with. With her anti-air too, I'd also give her an anti-air grab, but it would be extremely unsafe, meaning you would have to read your opponent or risk it, making airborne opponents Toph's biggest weakness, just like the show, along with her slow speed and limited range. Her burst would give her new special moves surrounded around metal bending, and even give her a full suit of metal like she did in the show that would boost her defense and give her a couple hits of armor on all her moves. We got Sokka, who some might say should be the joke character, but Sokka is actually a competent fighter. He just isn't a bender, so a lot of people count him out, but he's smart, tactical, and a big planner, so let's make him the big setup character of the game. I mean, Sokka's my boy, we gonna do him right today. We can give him some normals with his space sword and some with that weird machete thing he carries around. And for his specials, we can give him a basic projectile where he throws boomerang and it comes back. We can also give him a move where he throws it and it flies off screen past the opponent. Then at any point, he can hit an input and the boomerang can come flying back and hit the opponent at any time. I also want Momo to be somewhere present in this game, so let's give Sokka some moves involving Momo, like a move where he throws an apple on the ground or something onto the map, and Momo runs to the apple and starts eating it. At any point, if the opponent walks near Momo or Sokka knocks them near him, Momo will get scared by the opponent and start scratching at them, causing some nice damage, and maybe it could even extend combos. This wouldn't be on the map for too long, and the rest of Sokka's moves should show his resourcefulness and his planning skills. Let's also give him a dash attack where he charges head first and yells sneak attack at the opponent to show how boneheaded he can be as well. We can even give him a 3-bar super too, where Appa comes out of nowhere and attacks the opponent for Sokka. And for his burst, Sokka obviously can't bend, So what would his power up be? I'd have fun with it. And when Sokka activates his burst in animation plays where some Kyoshi warriors sit him down and do his makeup. And when it finishes playing, Sokka is fully dressed in Kyoshi battle garb with Suki by his side. And together, Suki gets new animations and specials that are similar to Suki's animations when she's alone on the roster. Spoiler. And finally, the Avatar himself, Aang. I saved Aang for last in this group because I have a special idea for him. Aang's normals would be all earthbending moves, as since he's the last airbender, like it literally says in the title of the show, it's not exactly easy to find airbenders to help balance out the roster from all the fire, water, and earthbenders. Aang is also a pacifist and spends most of his fights running away and counterattacking, only fighting when he has to. So let's make Aang a defensive player with a bunch of pokes, a parry, and a quick dash on the air scooter that can get him in and out of a fight, along with some airbending normals that are kinda like Fujin's in MK11, and some attacks with his staff. Aang is that character that likes to wait until the opponent attacks and tries keeping them at a distance quickly, getting away, or pushing them back if he has to, like the show. He would also have an air dash to help him back away or close distance. Now here's where things get crazy. You may ask yourself, Aang bends all 4 elements, there's no way you're just gonna have him airbend, and what about the avatar state? Here's what I do. At any point, as long as Aang has 1 bar of super, he can do an install super, with more bars meaning he has more time in the install. The install would allow him to use all 4 elements to give him basically a whole new moveset with the 4 elements, making him almost like a stance fighter. Now what happens if you were to be in the install when you activate your burst? You would then enter the avatar state where Aang's eyes and tattoos glow white, and Aang becomes extremely powerful with all 4 elements at his use at the cost of his burst and all his bars of meter. Zuko is one of the great examples of character development and a character evolving as the show progresses. Watching Zuko go from hunting down the Avatar and honor to joining the group and helping Aang defeat his father is the best instance of a face turn in media. Though it took him a while to not be an awkward idiot.
That's rough, buddy.
Of course Zuko is going to be in this game and he'll be in as our all-rounder. During the show we probably watched Zuko fight a bigger variety of opponents than anyone. Airbenders, earthbenders, waterbenders, and even other firebenders and non-benders, and he could be calm and collected or a complete hothead at some times, so it makes sense for him to be the jack of all trades. He can use his twin swords for some extra range and some attacks, give him a fire projectile, a rising punch utilizing his sword or his fire, and a couple other moves to help flesh him out. Maybe even a multi-hitting breakdance move like the one he hit on Azula in the Agni Kai. Then for his burst, he can activate the power of Sozin's Comet and the Dragon Dance to boost all his fire attacks and gain new moves, like even a move where lightning strikes him and he catches it and redirects it into a projectile at the opponent. You can also make it a 1-bar super, and I love to see the fire of the Dragon Dance somehow be incorporated into his super art. This goes for every character, but Zuko especially has a lot of outfits that you could add later on, like Bald Zuko or the Blue Spirit, among a ton of others. My boy Zuko has drip. Zuko's sister. Ozai might be the big bad that Aang and everyone trains for, but Azula is really the main villain of the series. She almost kills Aang, sets off everything in Ba Sing Se, and almost kills her own brother in Katara. Azula is also shown to be extremely cold, cruel, and calculating, so let's reflect that in her moveset by making her a pure mix-up character. A character that excels if you stay calm and get in your opponent's head with tons of 50-50s, highs, lows, and overheads. She would also have a unique air dash that not many characters in this roster may have. Azula works a little differently here than everyone else though, because once you get Azula below, say, 20% health, she goes insane like she did at the end of the show. Her moveset entirely changes from 50-50 to pure rushdown, running at your opponent and pressuring them relentlessly with anger and anxiousness from your low health until you brute force the victory. And of course, once you burst with Azula, she gains access to special lightning attacks like a new projectile, along with a power boost and lightning in her normals. Ozai is the biggest bad of Avatar, and of course the guy you fight at the end of the arcade ladder in this game. Someone who tried to orchestrate the complete takeover of the Fire Nation, burned his own son, and kept Aang awake at nights from fear. Ozai would be a character that completely pressures the opponent with multi-hitting attacks, 50-50s, and even some grabs, always keeping you on your toes and being a very aggressive fighter from all ranges. Ozai wouldn't have many defensive attacks, he would just be all offense, so Ozai would struggle when he's on the back foot or if the opponent has the upper hand like Akuma from Street Fighter. His burst would only increase his pressure while also giving him some lightning based moves, mainly just adding the effect to his normals, giving him the power of Sozen's Comet and giving all his fire attacks extra power. Of course, you can't have Ozai, Azula, or Zuko without their dear Uncle Iroh. Well, Iroh and Ozai are brothers. But Iroh is one of the most beloved characters in Avatar, so let's honor him in Dear Departed Mako with a spot in the roster. Iroh would be the complete opposite of Ozai and be a completely defensive fighter, fighting with his fists, tossing T around and bumping with his belly, knocking opponents back. He would also have armor on his move. He can also have counters, parries, and some dodges to reinforce his defensive playstyle. But once you burst with Iroh, he finally lets loose and gains access to new and extremely powerful and damaging fire-bending attacks that ring true his name as the Dragon of the West. Mei is another fan favorite character because of her blunt attitude, sarcasm, and tendency to not hold anything back or sugarcoat anything. Her main fighting style comes from her throwing knives, so of course Mei would be a pure zoner. Multiple specials using her throwing knife with one quick projectile being thrown across the stream, along with other moves where she throws 3 daggers, although the startup would be slower. She would also have a move where she throws the dagger up in the air to catch jumping opponents, along with another move where she throws the knives in an arc. Of course, Mai would suffer up close, and then her burst mode would throw double the daggers, so instead of throwing one really fast projectile, her move would hit twice with 2 daggers, meaning it beat most armored moves, and her projectiles would become even faster during the burst timer. Ty Lee is another extremely popular character for obvious reasons. I mean, I had the biggest crush on this girl when I was watching Avatar growing up, and Suki. She is another non-bender though, although her fighting style was a lot more complex than Mai's, using acrobatics and swift hits to whittle down her opponent, which is how she will control in this game. Ty Lee would have unique wall jumps, allowing her to traverse the screen in a special where she quickly jumps to grab the opponent. She would play as another rushdown fighter with also plenty of pokes in the mid-range, trying to whittle down her opponent and piece different moves together bit by bit, although her damage wouldn't be the highest, but her quick speed and maneuverability would make up for it. And she'd also have a unique burst mechanic, as once she triggers burst, her specials and even some normals like her punching attacks will hit the opponent's pressure points, allowing them not to perform any bending attacks or stunning them if they were a non-bender like Sokka, and locking them out of some of their biggest moves and gameplays. Ty Lee would be a quick but dangerous fighter that would be perfect at close range, alright at mid-range, but with no projectiles at all, causing her to completely suffer against characters like Katawa or Mai unless she can lock out their abilities with her burst mode. Suki is a personal fan favorite character of mine, and there's no way I personally was going to leave her out of this roster. It's not like Suki doesn't deserve it either. She is a great hand-to-hand fighter, and even though she can't bend, she's still able to hold her own against the likes of Azula and Zuko. I can see her playing like Katana for Mortal Kombat, using her fans for a ton of her moves, like tossing the fan downwards at the opponent on the ground or in the air and using them for an extra range in her attacks. Suki would excel at sweep or the mid-range, controlling the space and letting the battle flow how she wants it. Then when she bursts, she can receive help from the other Kyoshi warriors, cloning or following up her attacks as if there's 3 Sukis on the screen, all performing pressure and doing damage. We've got one more firebender on the roster, spoilers, so let's fill them out with the general himself, Xiao. General Xiao is a cocky fighter, so I picture him as another zoner to help fill out the firebending cast, using different fire-based attacks and attacks using Fire Nation weaponry to help keep the opponent past full range. Then once you burst with him, he'll be able to call different Fire Nation soldiers to aid during the fight in his specials, using them to block attacks, throw projectiles, or even grab the opponent, making Xiao almost like a summon fighter. Jet is a fairly unique fighter in the world of Avatar with no bending to speak of, instead using his fishhook blades to do most of his fighting, meaning he'd be a fresh fit for the roster. He would obviously do great mid-range with similar hook attacks to Cabal in Mortal Kombat, grabbing the opponent and spinning them around, or a multi-hitting blade attack. Jet obviously wouldn't be as fast as a Cabal type, obviously being more of a Rekka fighter rather than Rushdown. Then for his burst, I'd have the other Freedom fighters help him with brand new specials like a new projectile, where Longshot shoots arrows allowing Jet to better control space, or Smellerbee coming in and swinging her sword allowing Jet to stay safe on some attacks. Aang won't be the only other Avatar in the roster, as we've got Avatar Roku here, ready to fire. The Avatar before Aang and the one who bestowed great guidance and wisdom upon him. This wisdom allows Roku to have access to all elements unlike Aang, but much like Roku himself, you need to have great wisdom to use him properly, as I'd make him a stance fighter, with 4 different stances for each of the 4 elements, able to switch between any of them at a moment's notice. His fire stance would allow for more damage with no long ring attacks. His air stance would work between all ranges at the cost of damage, giving him many attacks that whittle down his opponent. His water stance would give him long range and large sweeping attack, and his rock stance would allow him to control the screen and lock down his opponent, along with being his most defensive stance, like being able to give himself rock armor, which takes a free hit of damage. Then of course, once Roku activates his burst stance, he goes into the Avatar state where all his bending attacks are boosted, and some new specials where he uses more than one element at once, like a fire and ice projectile. Boomy's a crazy guy, I mean, that's all I really gotta say about him. But he looks like such a fun character to play in a hypothetical game like this. And imagine the interactions he would have with other characters like Ozai or Azula. Boomy would be deceptively agile, a lot quicker than Toph, with a lot of specials that revolve around giving him special buffs like Tremor from MKX. A buff where he gets a hit of armor, a move where he bites a crystal and gets a damage buff or even some health back, and even a move where he throws a crystal at the opponent and it surrounds the opponent, stunning them and allowing Boomy to continue his offense. Then with his burst, his pet Flopsy would be present in some new specials, pressuring the opponent and allowing Boomy to get off some of his buffs. We've had some fairly obvious characters, and we've had 3 fighters back to back who had some type of assist character, so let's break the chain and get a little weird with the weird pick, the Swamp Monster. The Swamp Monster is actually 2 guys who waterbend vines together in the swamp, forming this almost battle suit. The Swamp Fighter would obviously be big, heavy, and slow with some highly damaging attacks, but he would have a special twerk. I said twerk instead of quirk. Not only would the monster not be able to jump, instead having the highest health in the game, but once the Swamp Monster takes enough hits, he twerks on his enemy for his super, instantly killing them. Once he takes enough hits, it is destroyed, and instead the 2 guys, I don't know their names, are now on the field with minimal waterbending attacks meant to hold off the opponent until time passes. The round ends, or they use some of their bars of super to instantly get it back, relinquishing their bars in the process, meaning this would be the opportune time to get your damage in if you're the opponent, or to slow down their offense. But once they burst, the vines are strengthened, meaning it cannot be broken no matter how much you twerk, with their damage also being boosted, and they even got a little faster. Katara and Sokka's father and war chief, Hakoda wouldn't look out of place at all taking a spot on the roster. He'd for sure be a formidable fighter using his strange skills and weaponry to get a win in this game. He'd have his signature wolf armor and a shield that allows him to block projectiles, a jaw blade, spear, and club for his normals, and the Tangle Mine, a bomb that Hakoda himself created that he can use to set up traps and pressure for the opponent. And then when he goes into burst mode, he upgrades his weapon, getting a bow and arrow for long range, and an axe that replaces his club and blade that does more damage. Pakku Paku is another recognizable waterbender that we could use to help fill out our roster, since there is shockingly few that we know of in the world of Avatar. Paku is obviously a waterbender, but I give him more of a focus on his ice-based attacks in order to separate him from Katara and the other waterbenders. As long as we don't put him against women, we should be fine. We can give him a projectile where he shoots a disc of ice like the movie taught Katara that he could repeat over and over again. We can give him a move where he covers the ground in ice, which allows him to have a quicker dash that goes a longer distance, while also making the opponent's movement slippery, along with some ice and water moves to help flesh him out. Then, when he activates burst mode, he gets a boost to all his bending moves. Hey, not everybody can get some crazy new mechanic with this mode. Sometimes people just need a stat boost. Sparky Boom Man would be a great heavyweight character to add to this game, using his metal arm to grab and push around the opponent. I see him playing a lot like Jax from Mortal Kombat, being a heavy hitter with major damaging attacks. Of course, he'd have a damaging projectile where he takes time to charge up a combustion blast before firing it at the opponent. We can also give him a super where he fires the same blast except a way more powerful version. Then, once he activates Burst, he can fire his blast way more quickly with less of a startup, with them even doing more damage than before. This analysis might have been simple, but Combustion Man only ever did one thing on the show. Simple and clean though. Aang's old mentor before he was frozen for 104 days of summer vacation. School could long just ended. Monk Gyatso takes the spot in our next roster. I wanted another airbender in the roster, but since Aang is the only one actually around, I had to dig deep, with the only other choice being Gyatso, since he's really the only recognizable airbender in the ATLA series. But we also don't know how Gyatso fights, so I say make him pure rushdown. I know rushdown is the last style airbenders would have since they're mainly peaceful pacifist monks, but screw it, let's get wild. Imagine how fun it would be watching this old man rush down enemies and using his airbending to quickly get in and get out whenever he needs. Let's even give him a double air dash like Gogeta Super Saiyan 4 in Fighters, because why not? And when he activates Burst, he gets even faster and his air moves are now buffed. Burst can even give him a special move where he enters an animation and his speed is buffed even more. The boulder has conflictions. That big nasty has taken so long to add him to the roster.
Sounds to me like you're scared, Boulder.
The boulder is now over his conflictions and is ready to bury the big nasty in a rocket ledge. Sure, the boulder's nice and all, and we could really use another earthbender, but does he really deserve a spot in the roster? Probably not, but damn it, if he's not the character I want the most. Screw it, this is my one just for me pick. Let's give the boulder a ton of grabs that reference a ton of different wrestling moves, like an RKO. Imagine the boulder doing an RKO. I'd also give the boulder projectiles that hit the far screen, meaning he would be good either up close with his grabs or full screen with his airbending, meaning with this character you either want to read his grabs or dodge or stay mid-screen. Then his burst allows him to choose the distance of his projectiles in order for him to control the screen, albeit he has to be precise and be able to guess his opponent's movement. Avatar has one of the greatest Halloween episodes in all of our childhood cartoons, and that wouldn't be half true without a great antagonist like Hama herself. The one who taught Katara bloodbending, we have the chance to make an incredibly unique character here. I'd make Hama a full screen fighter using her waterbending for extra range along with some bloodbending moves that allow her to push the opponent off of her for more space, and even a special where she bloodbends the opponent and leaves them open for a follow-up attack. And a special where she pulls the opponent closer to her, which she can even perform mid-combo. Once she activates Burst is when things really get fun. Once she activates Burst mode, she pulls Aang from off-screen, referencing when she used bloodbending on him to get an upper hand on Katara. Using Burst would turn Hama into a puppet fighter with access to Aang's full kit while she is still allowed to move around, and use her moves as well, making her a major powerhouse once Burst mode is activated, and fully showcasing her bloodbending skills, making her one of the hardest characters to use, but the most rewarding. I know what you're all thinking. Yes, yes, and yes. Obviously, Cabbage Man is the perfect character for this roster, and nobody wants to get vindication on the GA more than the man whose car keeps getting destroyed by them. He can be the obvious Joe character who has punching and slapping normals, with his only special moves being him throwing cabbages straight, upwards, or in an arc that can hit the opponent overhead if aimed right, allowing him to keep himself safe if used properly. Now, once he activates Burst, his cabbage car rolls in behind him and he can push forward and back, running over the opponent in the process and allowing him to throw cabbages at the opponent like a machine gun. The car can be destroyed though, and if it is, the Cabbage Man can go into a rage, giving some of his attacks armor and a higher defense and higher damage. The final character of our roster, there's no war in Ba Sing Se, and no war in this game, because Long Feng will take care of it. Long Feng would have a slow movement, but be extremely quick in all his attacks. He would have a super jump similar to Master Roshi's key jump when he's on the ground in fighters. He would also have earthbending specials and a projectile where he flings the rock hand at the opponent, knocking them down and allowing him to close in on the enemy. He would also have a wall jump that allows him to retreat or advance on the opponent. Once he activates Burst, he gets a flat damage boost to his attacks and earthbending, and his walking speed is increased. His rock hand projectile will lock the opponent's hand in place, and instead of doing damage, it will stun them, allowing Long Feng to close in and combo the opponent. Those were all 24 opponents of the roster, and we've got a varied cast of characters to help fill out the roster that span the entire globe of the ATLA universe. I would have preferred another airbender or even a sandbender, but using the ATLA cast of characters, it'd be hard to find one without using a generic villain. But with the roster done, of course, we all know what it's time for. It's time to look at what stages would be in the game. I know many of you are expecting DLC, but I'm having too much fun creating this hypothetical game to not mention what stages we could see, and ATLA has some of the most unique locations in any show I've ever seen. We've been borrowing so much from Dragon Ball FighterZ, and that game had 14 stages, so let's fill out this game with 14 unique stages from the Avatar universe. There's so much you can do. We can see Omashu and Ba Sing Se where the Cabbage Man could be present. Another nice stage would be the Earthbending Ring where they find Toph, and once the round ends, the opponent can even fall out the ring, with the fight chants being replaced by the announcer. Ba Sing Se would also have two stages, with one being atop the city and the other being in the Ba Sing Se underground where Azula almost killed Aang. The Northern Water Tribe with Princess Yue in the background, and the screen can even go black and white in the last round, like when Zhao murdered the Yin and Yang fishies. It's been a while since I watched, sorry. The Eastern and Western air temples would also be amazing backdrops for a stage in this game. The Kyoshi Village and Ember's Island would also be two great backgrounds that can feature characters like the Kyoshi Warriors and Appa and Momo in the background. We can have a basic Fire Nation warship to fill out the stages, and even the Deadly Serpent's Pass with the serpent coming out mid-match and during the windscreen. Of course, when you fight Ozai in the arcade ladder, it'd be during the final canyon where him and Aang battle, which would make for a fantastic final stage. The Boiling Rock, whether it be in the prison yard or on the gondola, would be an absolutely fantastic stage. And finally, I'd have the Secret Tunnel Cave be our final stage. And you can have the Stoners, let's face it, that's what they are, playing their instruments and singing Secret Tunnel in the background. 14 stages, quick and easy, and wow, this has been a fun video to make. And I feel like we really did touch on all corners of the ATLA globe, besides maybe Kyoshi, but she could just be a pre-order exclusive or something. I'm going through Netherrealm withdrawal, so I don't really see what else we can talk about besides a Korra DLC. Yes, I know we said we weren't going to do an Aang vs. Korra type game, but this is a DLC and we can do whatever we want now. And this is just for fun anyway, so let's run down a quick season of DLC of 5 characters, since I feel like that's a pretty good base number to go off of. Our third or fourth avatar of the game, if Kyoshi is added. Unlike Aang and Roku, who have unique ways of channeling their 4 elements, Korra loves to fight, so let's make her a straight up brawler using all 4 elements at any time to waylay her opponent. Korra would work as an all-rounder bruiser character with beefy damage, though she would be unsafe on a lot of moves to convey her early bronze first fighting style. Then of course, once she triggered burst mode, she would enter the avatar state, where it is the end of series Korra, and she's more mature and wise in her moves, giving her new strings where she's safe, or just flat making most of her moves safe, allowing her to continue the pressure. Mako is one of the main protagonists alongside Korra, and while he has a mixed reception with the Avatar audience, to the amount of focus he gets in the show, it'd be weird to leave him out. Mako could be another mix-up character for the firebending side, but since lightning bending is a lot more prominent in Korra's time, I'd give him a mix of lightning and fire-based attacks in his offense to help add to his mix-up and pressure. Then once he goes into burst mode, his brother Bolin comes with new special moves to help his brother with his earth bending and unique lava bending to help fill out his moveset and give him some range from farther than close up to make him a pressure demon. It was between Tenzin and Zahir, but since we have to cover the whole cast of Korra and I already left out the likes of Bolin and Azami, it wouldn't make sense to have two airbenders on the roster. Tenzin would be another mix-up character with different airbending moves to help cross up his opponent and leave them guessing on his next move. And we can even give him a status special where he channels winds, pushing his opponent back, making it harder to attack Tenzin and to dodge his cross-ups. Then once he activates Burst, his 3 kids would come in on his attacks to help protect his dad during his moves and specials, and they could even pop up for his super once his Burst is active. Amon is another one-trick pony much like Combustion Man, but we know that he is a waterbender. Let's make Amon the pure zoner, using blood bending to control his opponent and to knock them far back on the screen, allowing him to continue his waterbending zoning. We can even give him a super where if you spend 5 bars with Amon, you go for a grab. And if you grab the opponent, Amon does damage, locks out their bending, and prevents the opponent from bending for the rest of the round, only further empowering his keep away. Then if you burst with him, he gets a flat damage boost. But if you burst and then do the 5-bar super, then not only is it locked for the round, but it is locked for the rest of the game unless the opponent uses their burst bar. Kuvira is the final villain of Korra's show and the one who caused the end of the Avatar line. So of course Aang and Roku need her in the game so they can have a word with her, a quick argument here. She'll also offer a unique playstyle in that she mainly metal bends in all her fighting, meaning she'll stand out amongst everyone else. She can metal bend her cables to create almost like a large staff or whip she can use to attack the opponent. And she can even create knives and swords in her normals using metal bending. We can also give her a special where she bends her opponent using metal ties, stunning them in the process. Then when she bursts, she gets a boost to her metal bending abilities, and all her moves that don't use metal bending will get an earth bending animation attached to it with varied effects. There it is, folks. Aang, Katara, Toph, Sokka, Zuko, Azula, Ozai, Iroh, Mei, Ty Lee, Suki, Pakku, Hakoda, Hama, the Boulder, Cabbage Man, Long Feng, Boomy, General Xiao, Jet, Roku, Gyatso, the Swamp Monster, and Sparky Boom Man. 24 characters, all with unique and varied movesets, with Korra, Mako, Tenzin, Amon, and Kuvira as your DLC fighters, with even Avatar Kyoshi as a possible 6th DLC. And I even gave you 14 stages, and there's still so much I could talk about. All the possible outfits that you can give the main GAANG. Outfits referencing the Ember Island play about them. Imagine a skin turning Toph into a giant muscular man. A painted lady skin for Katara. The menus being the White Lotus engaging in a pie show game. Or the gang riding atop Appa, since this game could always use more Appa. The setting screen being Sokka and Hakoda working on battle plans. The music screen or sound menu being the Secret Tunnel Stoners. The 2-player screen being Aang and Zuko in the middle of the Trial of the Dragon. There's still so much more you can do just with the menus that act like a love letter towards this game that has long since needed in the gaming world. But if I did that, I'd be here all day. So hopefully this is enough for now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know by liking, commenting, and subscribing, and telling me how much you like Avatar, how long awaited this game is, or just plain what type of videos you would like to see next. This is your boy Big Nasty. Say it with me and give it back to me, because this was my look at Avatar Rumble.